What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one who knows best, and in today's video, I'm bringing you a discussion video with the one and only Speedkicks. Say what's up to everybody for me.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
So you might know him as, well, there's a lot of things you might know him as. Boy Genius, Lab Rat, officially unretired pro player.
Yeah. I'm definitely taking that title now. You know.
Say shout outs to the exclamation point retired command in the chat. It is no longer. But yes, Speedkicks, for those of you who aren't aware, is a very decorated, very experienced, very established professional level Tekken player who I aspire to be like one day. Well, I don't know, because he ain't really playing Warthog no more. So you know what I'm saying? He done went to the dark side and playing. Of all characters, like I get it. I trust me, I get it. But like of all characters, bro, like our mortal enemy or one of them anyway.
Look, man. The reason we hate her is because she does like the same thing we do, but like on the other end. All right,
the same thing, but better. Yeah. We're talking about Nina, in case you weren't aware. But that's not why I brought him here today. Today I brought Speedkicks on the channel to have a discussion about coaching in fighting games and whether or not coaching is essentially cheating. And as a matter of fact, I'll jump over to the monitor real quick and I'll show you guys here a tweet that he made a couple of days ago. And he's not the first person to bring up this conversation, but he made a tweet that I ended up quoting. It says, my most old man take on fighting games is mid-set coaching is lame and should logically be considered cheating. And then I made a quote tweet of it. Let me see if I can just find it here in the quotes real quick. Hopefully I'm close to the top. Am I? No, I'm not. Regardless, I said something to the effect of, I mean, I never really saw coaching as that big of a deal. And then 2 points that I kind of made as well is that, like, I mean, coaching exists in kind of like every other sport in esport, like most sports in esports. So I don't really see how it's that much different. I mean, there definitely are some differences, and we're going to talk about those here today. And then also, when I feel like as a spectator, and you guys let me know how you feel about this if you can test this as well in the comment section. I watch a lot of tournaments, and typically when I'm watching a tournament, coaching is most often received by the losing player. Sometimes both. The winning players get coached a lot of times as well. But I feel like more often than not, when I'm watching a tournament set and a losing player gets coached, majority of the time they kind of still lose. Like if they were just getting blown up in game one, they might make some adjustments. They might perform a bit better. But I feel like the usual outcome more than half the time is them still losing. And then that obviously turned into its own conversation or whatever. And Speedkicks and I ended up having a conversation with a few replies on Twitter. And I was like, you know what? This will make for a great video because I think people would enjoy this. And I'd like to hear his thoughts, his opinions. And he brought up some good points that I hadn't really considered myself before. So I want you to go ahead and get that going with what you said to me, particularly with the coaching beforehand and how it enables a certain play style going into the match before the first game is even played.
Oh, yeah. So, so the way fighting games kind of work is, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff at like light speed, but the end of the day, it's about, kind of doing this stuff while having to keep up with the fight against another player, right? Like you can't, it's not just about hitting your combos, it's not just about getting your punishes, it's about thinking about what the other guy might do, and then like while dealing with that mental pressure of everything that could happen, you respond to what does happen, or you look out for a certain read, or you make the certain decision like, okay, I'm gonna lock in on this read, and you choose to cut off your mind to certain other things, and then you get your conversion, you get your punish, you execute whatever. The difficulty of that execution a lot of the times comes from the pressure you're feeling of also needing to make the decisions versus the other guy. There are players who are it doesn't just happen in fighting games, it happens in other esports too, where they're like the all hands no brain player, right? Where they are fully mechanics focused, right? They have the cleanest conversions, they have the cleanest combos and all that stuff, but their mind games are weak, and that's because they're choosing to manage their mental stack to like focus just on the game and not so much on the player versus player aspect and keeping their awareness up. When you add a coach to that, it is one of the most deadly combos. As a coach, I've been able to sort of experience that, right? Where I have a player who isn't so good at keeping up with the mind game, but because of that, their entire brain is focused on the mechanics, and I just tell them a couple of things and they go, like
right.
So it brings out the strength in certain play styles.
Also, that's another title I forgot to add to the list. Coach as well. He's actually one of the better coaches, I would say, in not just NA, but probably in the entire Tekken scene.
Bro, you're gassing me up too hard, man.
I calls it as I sees it.
but yeah, so I've had like a lot of tournament success with players like that because they're so they get a huge benefit from the coaching thing. The other players are worried about, like they're still managing mental stack, and then you're fighting a guy who's like basically just like an AI, and there's another guy telling them what to do, and it's a deadly combination.
Mm-hmm. I think that is something that had like never once crossed my mind, because obviously like I've competed in events. I'm far from what I would consider like a top player, or even really like I am competitive in nature, but I'm not what I would describe as a competitive Tekken player, right? I don't play the game professionally for a living by competing in tournaments, but I have participated in tournaments mostly for DBFZ. It's like I have experience with getting a little bit of coaching on the side, and actually more experience with my opponents getting coached when I'm playing them, but it pales in comparison to what you have been through, obviously. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation like on video with you, because I think you could not only expose me to these different ideas that I hadn't considered or had crossed my mind, but also the viewers as well. And I think the idea that a player could limit the amount of things they have to worry about in a match, and and how that completely changes their play style and what they're able to focus on, in theory, at least to me, it sounds like a big, I don't want to say not advantage, that's not the word I'm looking for, but just an asset, I guess, that could definitely contribute to a much different outcome than what it would be originally. Because mental stack is obviously, honestly, it's one of those words in the FGC that I feel like everybody just learned within the last year, not to kind of get spammed.
Yeah, buzzword.
Yeah, one of those new favorite buzzwords in the community. But it definitely is a thing, and it absolutely exists. And when you're able to minimize the amount of mental stack that you have during a match, it definitely allows you to play more free, more confident. And when you can, okay, I'm going to focus on these things, and you have somebody chime and say, hey, here's what you missed here or there. You add that, boom, you got this. Yeah, and I think that is a very interesting point. Do you attest though? Because I mentioned earlier, actually, so let me walk back a little bit. I said earlier that I feel like more often than not, when I'm watching a player who's losing get coached, they kind of still tend to lose. I didn't say that to diminish the idea or to imply that coaching is ineffective, because that's certainly not the case. I am a believer that coaching at every level and in every sport is effective, and it exists for a reason. There's a reason why coaches in the NBA or the NFL are getting paid millions of dollars, and there's a reason why players thank their coaches and shout out their coaches, whatever, whenever they have success in this game. Their training partners and their coaches play a large role in that. So when I make the statement that the losing player tends to still lose, it's not to diminish coaching and say that like, oh, well, coaching doesn't matter anyway, so why is it a big deal? You know what I mean?
Right.
But do you agree with the idea or the sentiment that like, well, more often than not, the losing player still does end up losing?
I don't know if I can say that, because
I don't have like concrete data for this. Obviously, it's just the eye test more than anything.
Because on the eye test, right, I look at someone get 2-0'd with or without a coach, and I'm like, okay, he got 2-0'd. That was a big skill diff, right? Mm-hmm. But I look more, then I see, okay, this guy gets, he goes down one game and then he wins 2 games without a coach. I'm like, okay, that was gonna, obviously that was, he just outplayed him. Mm-hmm. With the coach, I'm like, well, hold on, was it the coach? What happened? But right. now you got to dig a little deep. So what I was saying in response when I said as a viewer, how would we know? There's actually kind of no way for me to tell what would have happened with or without the coach, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't normally see. I would, in order for me to agree with you, I would have to say that I normally see people who lose the first game lose the whole set, and I can't agree with that, but I also can't disagree with your statement, because like I do see people lose and get coached, or lose the first game and get coached, and they still lose the second game, right?
Right.
So it's just, I think it's something that's kind of impossible to tell as a spectator. All we can do is go, hey, this guy lost 2-0, or hey, this guy made a comeback. He lost the first game, and then he won the second game, and then he lost the second game, then lost the last one. Mm-hmm. And we can't tell if there was a coach's influence in that or not, right? I don't know if the coach is changing the data or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. So one thing I want to ask you, right? So you basically said that like logically coaching, like mid-set coaching, should be considered cheating. Yeah. And one of like my rebuttals, replies, or however you want to phrase it to that was, well, I feel like coaching definitely is a factor that plays a role in a player's success and the outcome of the match, and to what extent we really don't know, you know what I mean? Because you never will know, like you just expressed. But I do feel as though the ability to implement the information or the data or the advice given by the coach still falls on the shoulders of the player. And obviously different players have varying levels of ability to do so. And that will also heavily factor into whether or not it makes a difference in the outcome of the match. So with that, I feel like, and this is just an opinion, right? Well, obviously, it is still mostly up to the player, and the ability of the player to implement said data is going to, I don't know if I want to say outweigh the advice that's being given, but I feel like the majority of the responsibility still falls on the player. So to me, I don't see it as cheating the same way you do. So could you elaborate as to why you would consider it as such?
Okay, so I would like, I guess, let me explain kind of how I see the competitive nature of the game in the first place, right? I think the way I look at competition is the players have a certain set of skills, right? We all spend our time analyzing the game, developing the skills, figuring out what we want to get good at, playing to our natural advantages, playing to our natural weaknesses, all that stuff, right? We sit down and we play the game, and then the game analyzes who was the better player, right? It takes in all that data. It's like input on both sides, right? Like, okay, this guy has these skills and this guy has these skills, and then the game does calculations and it says one guy wins, the other guy loses, right? And it determines who is the better player, right? And that means including like reads, awareness, combos, execution, mind games, all that stuff, right? What you just said is that there's still some skill involved in implementing the coach's decisions, right? I think that we are now changing where that is something that is not a skill being tested by the game, or that was not initially meant to be tested by the game, right? Instead of it being the skill set that the game would choose is better, right? We're now adding, instead of it being, okay, how can you make these decisions while executing stuff? It is how well can you execute the stuff while someone else is feeding you decisions.
So as opposed to how can you alter your decision making based on the data that you've gathered, it now becomes how can you alter your decision making based on data that was given to you by an outside source. Yes,
exactly. And now both players are both being judged on this, but that's not the nature of the game.
Right.
That's the nature of a 2v2. It's more of a 2v2, right? And it's a fair 2v2. So, but I'm saying that the game is not. We should sort of see it as a 1v1 competition, and we should see things that turn it into a 2v2 as against the rules.
I see it. Do you think, because I'm of the opinion that the bigger issue, because again, we feel differently about this, which is also why I think it would make for interesting conversation. Do you, I feel like a bigger issue than it being like this outside source giving extra help or it being cheating or however you want to look at it, is the amount of time it slows down matches. Because like obviously icing a player is definitely a thing, and just like momentum and everything like that. And I feel like particularly at the mix-up, just fun enough, after you made that tweet, I swear the amount of coaching like ramped up. I swear to you, I was like, is this like placebo, or is it just like I'm just looking at it more now? But I was like, everything, I swear the amount of coaching kicked up a lot, and particularly in top 8, because I swear like Lohai was on his run and he'd like beat somebody down, and then he's just sitting there just blank face like looking at us with like, yo, can y'all hurry it up? Because like he's trying to hurry and finish the match, and he's just getting like iced like every single game. And I feel like that's a more of a detriment to the game, or at least to events, than the outside influence. But how do you feel in general about that? Because do you think that if coaching was regulated differently, or do you think it could be regulated in a way that like makes sense or is okay, or would you just prefer it just was eliminated altogether?
So this is the regulation, right? So the thing about coaching is that we long time ago never used to do it, right? And then somewhere around, let's say I can't be exact here, like 5-6 years ago, people started like coaching, like they would just have like guys coming up, right? And it would go for a certain amount of time. It'd be like two different dudes who say do two different things. So they were like, "Yo, okay, if you're gonna have coaching, then it has to be 60 seconds. It has to be one designated guy, right?" And that was still sort of rarely abused. But over time, because there's an official ruling on it, right? People see it as, instead of it being a regulation of, I can only have a coach for 60 seconds, it's, I should have a coach, right?
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, so that's actually something that I brought up in one of the replies to somebody else, because they were like, "Oh, it should be regulated more," and I was like, "Well, I think at some point TWT did actually implement that as a thing," and I was like, maybe it should be that way. But then I feel like you just said, I think that actually encourages players and like kind of makes them feel almost obligated to have a coach, which again I think just slow things down even more and just kind of muddy things up.
And that's exactly where we are right now. So everyone is, when you go to events, people are looking for people who aren't even from like their country, or like, like they're not like, like they're at a foreign event. They're making friends here and like, yo, can you coach me like in the set? Because having another guy there helps a lot.
Two heads are better than one, I guess, as they say.
And this is not an inherent like a team competition, right? This is not like Street Fighter Cross Tekken doubles, right? This is not multiverses. So people are not coming prepared with like a second guy, or they're not registering together, So they have to get a coach, and sometimes the game is 1v1, sometimes the game is 1v2, sometimes the game is 2v2, and that's probably not good for competition, I think.
I could definitely see how it's unfair when it's 2v1, because like if it's 1v1, that's probably the way it should be. When it's 2v2, it's like, okay, it is what it is. But when it's 2v1, it's like, hey man, like I ain't got a coach. How come he get a coach? And it's like, well, maybe you should have brought one. It's like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to have one. Like, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, so that's what Rushdown, the Street Fighter player, was saying, and he was like, until we fighting games reach a point where we're having like designated coaches, like people are like guaranteed like going out to their events with their guy, like until we get to that point where everyone's doing it, it's killing the sort of the 1v1 spirit of the competition.
I see that. I definitely can see that point of view.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this, like I said, so this is the regulation, and the thing is, as soon as we put the rule regulating it, it became more of a widespread thing. This is you get 60 seconds between each game for a coaching session.
Is it so? That's still in the TWT like rules now?
Yep, it is.
Are there any other scenes that have a specific rule regarding this? Like,
I don't think, I know Smash has it banned.
Yeah, I know Smash has a ban altogether, which I'm a Smash hater, so I was like, well, if Smash has a ban, maybe we're supposed to have it, but I got this. jokes. But I was like, we really gonna follow suit the Smash community? I don't really know if that's the direction I want to go in personally, but
look, if there's one thing Smash knows, is rule sets, okay? They're good at that.
I've seen some questionable debates on their rule sets in the past, so I don't really know. They be the first ones to talk about, we gotta ban this character and this and that, and
look, you gotta open up the disc. You gotta open up the discourse for it, okay?
Look, they want to ban Kazuya, but not certain individuals who get. Never mind. We're not going. I mean, it's some interesting characters over there. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if y'all know, y'all know. But anyway,
aside from Smash having it banned, I'm not sure if any other fighting game has like a specific rule on coaching.
I wonder, because this is a conversation that I feel like gets brought up on Twitter like every few months, and I know it's been ongoing for years where people like coaching just shouldn't exist like in the fighting game scene. And you guys in the comments, I want you guys to let me know how you feel, and I'll definitely be reading all the comments that we get on this video. And because like I wouldn't say I feel strongly about it. Like I could be convinced, I guess, to say like, oh yeah, it just shouldn't be a thing. Like I don't currently think it's that big of a deal, but I do think that it's something that if not checked, and like it's already regulated to some degree, but I could definitely see it getting more and more out of hand, and I could see how it could negatively impact the competitive spirit or the integrity of events, and how it could eventually become a thing where it's like that, like especially when it comes to like the higher level, right? You're gonna have so many people who, like, let's just say like Joka and K-War, so like you and Felix, right? Like y'all gonna be there at events together, y'all gonna be able to coach each other, whatever. But when you're up against Naruto Sage 6ix9ine in your bracket, and it's like, okay, well, regardless of whether or not Naruto Sage had a chance. So now let's say Naruto Sage is actually a really good player. You got a coach, he doesn't, and it's like, that's fucked up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all the top players got coaches, but all the unsponsored guys, or all like the people who like came to the event by themselves, is like they're just fending for themselves. Like I definitely get that. Yeah,
and that's why you said that, and so that's why what you just said. After I made the tweet, you start seeing the coaching more. It's because we got further in the bracket. You get further in the bracket, you start seeing more professional players.
For sure.
And you see more professional players, there is just dudes with coaches.
And right? It's funny too, because like you mentioned before, like they don't even necessarily have to be from the same region, or like guys like normally get along. I can't think of a specific example right now, but there have been times where like I'll see a player lose a game, and then a player will come up, whether it be like a Korean player coming up to a Japanese player, or vice versa, or like whatever, or someone else. I'm like, I didn't even know y'all was cool like that. You know what I'm saying?
Fear coached Kwis and Joka at CEO.
Yeah, that was
random. They just asked for it.
I was like, I didn't even know y'all knew each other. Like.
And then same thing, Book was sitting there looking at Bilal getting coached by Seppi Black. Right. Seppi Black is from Germany and Bilal is from Pakistan.
Yeah, so like, broke my ankles. Like,
sometimes you just gotta get the help you can get.
I get it, especially if the guy that you're fighting has one. It's like, well, if he got one, I need one because now I'm at a disadvantage if I don't.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
And like you said, with bringing up VDX, part of the reason I think it's cheating is because I watched. I saw what it did for VDX.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like he is a specific type of player who is his performance can be directly impacted or correlated to that kind of thing. Especially because how best can I put this? He be overthinking. I think he thinks way too much when he be playing.
Yeah, so he will confuse himself in his head or in his emotions or both.
He just like me for real.
Right. And so he, and when stuff starts going bad, sometimes I just have to be there and be like, yo, calm down, like do this. Like you know what to do, right?
For sure.
Or, it doesn't have to be too complicated, but I am assisting him with a mental skill that he probably would lose because of otherwise. Right. And as someone who took the time in a different era of fighting games to develop those mental skills, I'm like, well, why are we allowed to shortcut, like circumvent people not having these skills developed?
I mean, shit, why not? They shortcut in every other skill in fighting. Nah, let me not. Again, another conversation.
This is like the mental form of macros. It's like, what is this? Like, what are we doing?
So you're anti-macros as well, like button binding and stuff?
No. When I say macros, I mean like the fairy board,
the cheating macros, like on PC and shit, like
the
one
auto
electrics and shit.
Yeah, the one button for the running two thing,
Gotcha. Do you use button binds though? Now that I brought that up.
Yeah, I do. I started using them in Tekken 7 after I realized they weren't going anywhere.
Gotcha. So you weren't a fan of them at first, and you were just like, well, it's here, so I guess.
I didn't care. But okay. when I started playing, that was right when it was just about to not be banned anymore, right? So at the start of Tekken Tag 2, the button binds were banned, okay, so I learned how to play without them.
So I wasn't around for Tag 2, so I didn't know. I mean, rather I'd skipped over Tag 2, I guess I should say. I wasn't in the competitive scene at all. I was a very casual kid who grew up playing Tekken and loving it, and I skipped over 6 and Tag 2, and then I got into the FGC, I guess, when Tekken 7 came out. I didn't even know button binds were banned at the start of TT2.
Yeah, they were banned. They were banned all the way since competitive Tekken was a thing till Tekken Tag 2. They were banned.
Oh.
And then kids started binding, and the old men had to a lot. They just had to they would make fun of it. They would always make fun of it.
They still do. I feel like if I hear Aris or Bronson or just some of the old school guys, they definitely still make fun of that shit.
Yeah, it would always be funny. It'd be embarrassing when the kid had to go yo, let me check my buttons real quick.
Oh God,
it was always an old dude saying something.
Don't check my controller setup, man. But also I think there's also, again, we're getting completely off topic, but whatever. I'm sure people will enjoy it regardless. I play on pad, and I feel like as a pad player, you at a disadvantage if a severe disadvantage because the game's not designed for a PlayStation controller. It's still designed for arcade sticks. So
they play claw. Everybody played claw.
Well,
that was the expected way to play Tekken.
I did when I was a kid, not knowing what it was. You know what I'm saying? Like not knowing that there was a name for that. But that's just what felt right how to play the game based on how buttons and moves worked. I was like, this just makes more sense. But as I got older, I just started playing, a standard form. And when I play Tekken, it's if I didn't have button binds, I don't know how the fuck I would be meant to play this game because it's not designed for that kind of controller.
But yeah, that's an example of how sort of, I think, rule sets and sort of ideas about what is proper competition can change over time, right? The reason button binds were banned before was because they weren't a thing in the arcade.
Right.
So everyone had the idea that the game is meant to be played for buttons, right? Anything else is cheating. Which makes a lot of sense, right? Because that was the version of the game they were emulating. Over time, they stopped emulating that version of the game. They lost the idea of arcade purity, and they said, okay, well, whatever's in the game on console is fine, and button binds are in the game on console, so that's okay. And right now, that's why I call it an old man take, because when I started playing the game, fighting games were purely 1v1, right? And that was the whole appeal of them. People would always say, "Oh, it's cool. It's 1v1. It's 1v1." Right? Like, it's not a team game. There's no one else there. All my wins are on me. All my losses are on me. In my brain, still, fighting games are 1v1 competition. If I talk to someone who's been around for this coaching thing, they're like, "Well, it's kind of 1v1, but I have no problem with them having a coach, because they don't see the 1v1 aspect of it as something that needs to be maintained." And that's partially because of the rule set. If they join in a fighting game where the coaching was banned, then it would be natural to them to go, yeah, of course it's banned, right? It's a 1v1 game. But it's just how you see it over time, and how the ideas can change over time. And I'm saying that I think that we should probably preserve the idea of it being a 1v1, because the whole thing of not everyone being able to have a coach, as an open bracket kind of thing, right? This is meant for anyone these tournaments are meant for anyone to be able to enter, right? Not everyone's going to be flying around with buddies or like having an org who can fly out a coach. They're not all sponsored pros, So I think that saying it's a 1v1 sometimes, unless you're fighting someone who's privileged, is really is not a good look for the competition.
For sure. Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I think after this conversation, like I wouldn't say I feel like very strongly about it, but I could like if I was to get asked now, like, should coaching be allowed or should we ban? I'd probably say go ahead, ban it. Because I think, like you said, for preserving the competitive integrity of it, for the sake of fighting games are supposed to be 1v1, so let's just keep it 1v1. Like, I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't think right now it's like out of hand, but it's probably something that will only get more out of hand if it's not checked. So it's better to nip it in the bud earlier rather than later. And that's kind of how I feel about it now after this conversation.
Yeah, a lot of these things people don't start discussing about banning until it's too late and everyone's used to it and the idea is gone. Right. So, I think maybe I should have thought about this when they first said 60 seconds of coaching, but it was something that I never thought people would do. I'm not gonna lie, we used to like meme it, right? Like it would be like, oh, look, like get your friend, like get your go call for help.
Go get your big brother, man.
yeah. And then you would always see someone getting coached and the other guy looking at him during the 60 seconds, and like they like fake listening, and like it'd be like a little funny thing.
Yeah.
But now it's happening all the time, like every time, and it's like, wait, what are we doing? We should address this now, I think.
Yeah, it is something that I do feel like is becoming more common and more prominent. Like you said, it's probably better to address it now before it does get too out of hand, before it just becomes so commonplace that people are like, well, it's just been this way for too long now, so we're just going to keep rolling with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, I think that was a pretty great discussion, conversation. Hopefully you guys out there in the YouTube comments enjoyed, and I'd love to hear more of your thoughts and opinions on this. And depending on what I see in the comments, I might make a follow-up video addressing some of you guys directly or giving any further thoughts or commentary. And I don't know, this is kind of a conversation I'd like to have more so with maybe a couple other people. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, man, thank you as always, Speedkicks, for joining me here today. I might have to hit you up. You doing coaching still, by the way? Ironically enough.
I am doing coaching. I got sessions open after Evo, but right now I'm taking a little week off before Evo to get ready.
For sure. Well, good luck on that. I'm trying to sink my teeth back into the game, and I've been having not so great of a time because I haven't been practicing very much. I also haven't been... We can talk about that later. For you guys in the YouTube comments, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you again, Speedkicks, for joining me here today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already so you can stay tuned for all this content I'm going to bring you. With all that being said, this finish often, and remember, let's get happen. See you swing the bat. Later.